our ultimate 2025 Springbok team, every Sunday with André Pretorius.
Welcome back to part 2 of the Springbok Ultimate 2025 series that André Pretorius and myself are working on. Part 1 was where we discussed the criteria to be a successful Springbok outside centre. We understand what's required of a Springbok outside centre now. The link to that video is up here and down in the description. And this specific video, we're going to be discussing the candidates we've got in mind for this position, starting with Kriel. Like I mentioned before, he is after all the gold standard for Springbok outside centres. And we're going to be ending off, as usual, with a very dark horse. And I say very dark horse because you will never see this one coming. Right, now let's talk about our candidates. I mean, clearly the first candidate is going to be Kriel. I mean, no prizes for guessing that. But I mean, that we talked about him in the gold standard. So if we rate him now, then we can see how all the others that we're going to be rating stack up to him, and sort of puts it into context. So let's start with Jesse. First and foremost, his defensive side of it. We said it's going to count out of 40. What would you rate him out of 40?
Geez, if I could give him 42, I would, but I can't. I gave him 38 out of 40, and I'll be nitpicking to find something, but the way he defends, he does miss a lot of tackles, but that's part of what he's supposed to do. He's supposed to cut off plays. I think he can probably still go a bit more center mass when he's shutting down and not outside shoulder, which will improve his tackling when he's shutting down. But 38 out of 40 is definitely not a bad score, and probably as close to perfect as you're going to get.
But like you just showed there, a couple of those instances where he didn't actually make the tackle. He just prevented the ball from being passed. And that does that count now against him? Is it seen as a missed tackle?
Well, in those ones, it's probably not, because the event took place before he got there. But he forced the play. He forced them to take an ulterior, to make an alternative move in terms of getting the ball wide. But there are instances where he does shoot up and he misses the guy on the inside because he's forcing him back inside. It's a difficult tackle. But like I said, I'll be nitpicking. It does go against his tackle percentage, unfortunately, but he's actually doing his job. He's forcing them back inside to the Peter Steph de Toys and Eugene Ebenetzevets.
All right, then attack.
Attack is on a 27 out of 30 for me. Now, if you had asked me this question probably a year and a half ago, I reckon I'd probably be at about 22, 23, just purely for the fact that his decision-making in the wide channels wasn't good. He wasn't letting the ball go when it should go. He was passing when he shouldn't. When he carried it sometimes high, and I can understand with his power, he does dominate a lot of contact. But he's so effective at the moment. He gets it, like you just saw. His feet's great. He's got more of an inside step than he does going out. But when he steps on the inside, he gets that fend out. He keeps the ball away from the opponents. And like you saw, the ball's available every single time. And so 27 out of 30 for me.
Just on that subject now, has he improved as a player, or is it because he's playing in Japan and might be easier to be a good attacking player in Japan? Just put that into context for us.
No, then all players playing in Japan should be good, MW, or should be better. Yeah, he's worked so hard on his game, and I think there's probably people around him telling him exactly what he needs to be working on, and there's little to no flaws in his game at the moment. He'll probably say the complete opposite, but he's a great attacking player.
All right, so he's actually improved his game even more. Think back to 2023, the World Cup, and a couple of those games where Jesse really stood out. I mean, to be even better than that, even now, that's saying something. But let's talk about the rugby IQ now. I'm quite interested to hear what you mean about that. What you rated him as on rugby IQ.
I got him on an 18 out of 20, which is very high rugby IQ wise. Just the decisions he makes. He trusts those decisions. I think if you look at that clip from that I showed of Jurenzo Julius, if that was Kriel on the edge there, he shuts that play down. Where Jurenzo was jogging with Hooker, and they created the space for them on the outside. They left Mapimpi in trouble there. Whereas if they committed, or they switched early, defended outside, waited for the inside, they probably make the tackle, give Mapimpi an easier tackle there. But they were 50% pregnant, which you can't be. You either go and close it up, or you stay back, you defend out, and you ensure that the alignment's right and the connection's there. So
Okay.
18 out of 20,
Hmm.
he makes good decisions. He understands the game.
That's a good score. And then lastly, the work rate. I mean, we saw what he was capable of, the getting up and getting back into play if one or two phases later, running up to the edges, doing wide coverings and everything else. That must be a pretty impressive score as well.
Yeah, it's full marks. It's full mark. You can't ask for more than that. And he's also effective when he gets there. He's not just someone who's running meters. When he gets there, he secures ball. When he gets there, he's carrying ball. He's getting over the advantage line, which helps.
Just briefly, we're talking about his physical form, his conditioning. You mentioned the other day how far these backs typically run. Is the fact that Jesse's such a superb athlete and works so hard in his conditioning and his athleticism, if I can call it that, does that make a difference?
Yeah, without a doubt. He's so durable because he works so hard on his conditioning, and you can see it. He the way he comes out, does the warm up diligently. I can just see that through the whole week. The whole week's preparation looks exactly like that pre warm up before a test. So that makes a difference for sure.
All right. Who's next? I'm keen to hear who your next candidates are. And I suppose we're going to have another dark horse, by the way.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully we get there quickly. The next one is Henco van Wyk from the Lions.
Henco van Wyk. That's a bolter.
No,
Is he
no,
the dark horse, or is he one of your candidates?
no. He's like we saw on the depth chart. He was part of the alignment camps, and
Oh, okay.
he was earmarked to play for the Springboks at one stage, but he got injured, and that's probably something that's held him back a bit. And I don't know if it's symptomatic of the way he plays, because he is a physical player, but he does tend to carry a couple of injuries. And I'm really hoping that he gets into some form of range of games that he can put together and just pick up that consistency, because when he's in, his support play is good, he knows where the try line is, he's physical, he just doesn't get that consistent game time that the other boys. And we saw what they did for Jesse when he got into that seat and he kept it.
All right. Let's hear. Defense.
All right, defense. Now, what I did with him was I took the Springbok defense and how I thought he would fit in there. And obviously he's not doing that on a regular basis, so it'll be difficult for him now. I've no doubt that Henco, part of the group, is in the camps. Once he gets used to that, there's no reason he can't do it. But at the moment, he's at about a 30 out of 40 for me. He is physical. He does have post-tackle involvements, but I saw him and Edwulf van der Merwe. I nearly said Edwulf van Aarde.
There's a throwback. Yeah.
That's a blast from the past.
Yeah.
Edwulf van der Merwe get caught on that edge where sometimes Henco would go and Edward would stay, or Edward would sit with him and Henco can shut down at the back, which is not something he regularly does. And that's something that he's going to need to up if he wants to play for the Springboks.
All right. So attack.
Attack 23 out of 30. Very physical on the ball. There's not a lot of flaws. I think sometimes he plays to when the ball comes to him. I still want to see that rovering, playing both sides of the ball. He carries the ball a lot, so you want to see the offloads coming through a lot more. He dominates contact a lot, so you want to see the offload amount in his offload column picking up. So again, he's on the way up. I think the more he plays, the better these scores will definitely be. And obviously, it's just my opinion, but he's just not on the field long enough to get the confidence to take that attack to the next level.
Yeah, you're right. But he's also got a serious turn of speed. I mean, I remember him basically running past Kane and Moody the other day at Loftus. Remember, we talked about that as well. That's one of the arrows in his quiver.
And that's what we want to see. We want to see it's like a golfer. One day you're driving well, and the next day you're putting well. You want all of those things to come together. And the way you get that is by staying on the field, staying healthy, and working on those little tweaks and mistakes that you make. And then you get that consistent performance where all of those attacking strengths come together. And he's got it. Without a doubt, he's got it. He just needs time, a range of games to get the consistency.
Yeah, and big part of that is not being injured as often. I mean, that's one of the reasons why he doesn't have that much game time, because he gets injured all the time. So yeah, that's something to work on for him. I don't know what you can do about it, but the fact of the matter is that he does tend to get injured a lot, isn't it?
I'm just speculating, but I think Henco looks like he's a hard worker. He's also got a good physique. His conditioning is good. So there's a lot of extra work that goes in. But sometimes it's to the detriment of your body. It's to the detriment of your week, to the detriment of your preparation, where you're working harder and not smarter. You're actually putting your joints and your muscles and certain ligaments under more pressure than they probably should be. And when you get into game time, that's when you get injured. And the way he plays is at 100%. He doesn't know any other way. And that's why I'm thinking maybe the injuries is a symptom of the way that he plays. And it could also be maybe he's training, I don't want to say too hard, maybe just train a bit smarter, get the same amount of stuff done in less time or less volume.
All right. Rugby IQ. Yeah.
Now again, taking it into a Springbok jersey is not there yet for me. Is on the defense, especially. I think he's got a way to go to be if players run into his channel, they get tackled, they get smoked, they get hit really hard. But you want him to be proactive in his decision making. You want him to cut down wide plays. He defends wide channels well, but you don't always want to just make chase tackles. You want to make body and front tackles in your wide channel. So the IQ part, I think, is probably more on the defensive side, where he's lost a couple of marks for me. On the attack, when Kuhn Horn cuts the line, Henco's right there with him as a support player. I think he understands what he can do with his body when he does get into contact. So the IQ part, I think it's more the defensive part that lacks than the attack part.
So what's your rating?
15 out of 20.
Okay. Right, then work rate?
I put him at a 7, just because I think he can do a bit more for me on playing both sides of the ruck, or both sides of the field, and giving them more options. You want Henco van Wyk to get the ball in his hands as many times as possible. Now, it might be that they've got different players playing on both sides of the field, and Henco, and it's not that he doesn't do it. I just want to see him do it a bit more, and working harder to get back into position and ensure that there's extra attack options for the boys playing.
All right, so that gives a total of 75. Now that compares to Jesse Kriel. I'm happy with the Jesse the first this time. The best guy first, not last like we did it before. So we can relate to how good the other guys are scoring up. So 75 to 93, quite a mark different. A lot of work for Henco to still do to be able to really slot into that number 13 jersey and make it his own.
Yeah, and I have no doubt that he'll wear the Springbok jersey. Part of me wonders if he shouldn't play 12. He's got speed, he's got size, he's got good capabilities, catch and pass. Maybe that's something to look at going forward. But 13 is really exciting. It's he will wear the jersey, and that 75 won't be long lived. It'll be short lived. He'll improve with the time that goes past.
Just to put it into context, that's what Edwulf van der Merwe scored as well, a 75. That's a pretty good rugby player, but not quite there yet in terms of what a Springbok player should be. Right, who's next?
To be fair, I think Edwulf scored a bit lower because of the competition that was above him. If you have to compare apples with apples, it's really difficult sometimes. Edwulf's a good player, but I think if you if you look at the competition, it's a difficult jersey to get.
Yeah, no, like you said, the gold standards. On wings, we talked about it last week, and you can go watch that video over here. I'm going to put the link up on the screen here. You can click on it. Go watch it. Give us your feedback in that as well, because we're building up this whole library of different positions that Andre and I are discussing every Sunday, like we discussed. Don't miss it. So, Andre, who's next?
Jurenzo Julius.
Ooh.
So
Yeah, I
from the
remember.
clip that I showed you,
Sorry, you talked to me about that game against the Bulls. I was in the stands that day, and I didn't like what I saw. As a Bulls supporter, as a Springbok supporter, it made me very excited. But that specific day, it was very traumatic. I must be honest. That guy impressed me.
I showed you 2 clips of Jurenzo. The one where compared him in that similar position to Jesse, where he's on the outside, big space to cover, and what Jesse does and what he does. So that's a good comparison, I think, of a player in the same position doing different things and getting different outcomes to what you actually want. So with Jurenzo, his defense is he overestimates his speed times sometimes, where he's leaving people to get onto the outside and he kind of chases. He does get up on the outside. Don't get me wrong, he does get there. But I think if you had to put him in a Springbok jersey, he'd be found wanting to implement the system that we want to implement. So his defense is at 28 out of 40 for me. And purely for the fact that I think Henco's got a bit more physicality than Jurenzo, and that's why he's above him.
Yeah, all right. But we saw that. I mean, it's quite clear. He's not doing what he's supposed to be. He would have been expected to do in a Springbok jersey. So yeah, that's a good point. All right, attack. He's fast now. And that guy's. I mean, we saw that try you just showed us where against the Bulls. Fast, fleet-footed. He thinks well. What's your score there?
Yeah. So I think he's got Henco on this one. He's 25 out of 30. His attack is electric. He can create something out of nothing. You saw how easily he went around Sergio in that clip, and then the timing of that pass. And again, I'd like to comment on it again. The fact that he didn't try to do anything on his own. He assisted Hendrickson with a try. Didn't try and cut to the inside. Well, I think young players these days making name for themselves. They want to score the try because they want their name on the sheet. They want to be the one that ends it off. And he did the right thing there. Again, I'd like to see the pass with 2 hands, but the timing of that one-handed pass back to Hendrickson was perfect. So he's a 25 out of 30 for me.
All right, in rugby IQ. I mean, IQ, I suppose, also comes with experience. The more experience you've got, the more clever you are, because you've seen it before. You know what to do in certain situations. It's not like it's instinctively. You're not born with it. Well, maybe a little bit, but it comes with experience, or doesn't it?
For sure, and especially with the way that we want to play and the way that we want to defend, you need to feel that feeling of getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, going into space where there's nothing, where you actually know all I'm doing is I'm going to get into that space before the ball gets there, and I'm going to ensure that the ball doesn't get anywhere past this. So I gave him and Henco the same numbers for the IQ, and again, I think it's more on the defensive side where they're lacking than the attack. They're both great attackers. On the defensive side, they're going to need to make decisions, which I think will be difficult for them if they're not used to that type of defense. And not one of them are doing that defense at their current franchise that I can see. So it's a 15 out of 20 for the IQ, and also 7 out of 10 for work rate. You want to see him with ball in hand more. You want to see him playing both sides of the field and getting into position to be an option.
All right, so that's another 75 there. Slightly worse off than Henco on defense, but slightly better on attack, and they cancel each other out. Pretty much the same thing. But I suspect that Jurenzo has probably got a bit of a brighter future ahead of him. He's younger. We haven't really seen any serious injuries of his side. Which of those two do you think maybe have a bit of an inside line here?
I agree with you. I think Jurenzo, and purely based on the speed aspect, he's going to have to convince me on the defensive side first, where he can firstly implement the system, but then also to make tackles in that system. Jesse makes it look easy. The Springbok centers make it look easy to make those tackles on that position. When they run at Jurenzo, he makes his tackles, not a problem. And Oh, just a side note on the attack, Jurenzo also tends to lose the ball in certain contact situations, where I don't think Henco necessarily does. So their 75 together, makes sense in my head. They've got work to do to become, Springboks and be good Springboks. For the 13th jersey, Jurenzo on the attack, probably more so than Henco.
Right, the next one up is the guy that Jesse Kriel replaced when he got injured. That's Lukhanyo Am, stalwart, one of the, war horses of the Springboks. Remember that try that he gave away basically to Magazolo Mapimpi in the 2019 World Cup final? A legend, Springbok legend, Lukhanyo Am.
Yeah, it's amazing to see him playing at 12, giving Julius an opportunity to play at 13. They're lucky to have a guy like in that position. On the defense, probably a year or so ago, this mark would have been different for me, but purely for the fact that Jesse's the man in the seat. He's played a lot more there the last couple of tests. Lukhanyo's on 35 out of 40, and he's currently playing 12 as well, which, that's a channel in. You can't really compare the two defensively. So that's a 35 out of 40 with Jesse at a 38 out of 40.
And the attack with all these injuries he had, especially his knees, did he lose a bit of pace? A bit of his agility almost on the attack? Is he still the same player that he used to be?
I don't think so, MV, and I think he's probably asked to play a bit of a different game on the attack when he's playing 12 for the Sharks. He needs to be more confrontational, needs to be more direct. His evasiveness is still there. He's still got great feet. I haven't seen the speed that I'm used to from Lukhanyo. I still think I'd pick him above Henco and Jurenzo if we had to pick a team now and Jesse wasn't available. But he's at 24 out of 30 on the attack for me.
Yeah, it's also just in between the two of them. Henco was at 23 and Jurenzo was in 25. So 24 was sort of, between the two of them. I see you. All right. But better on defense. Substantially better on defense.
And which is fair. He's been in the system a lot longer.
Yeah. All right. One thing we can say about Lukhanyo Am, you said they were lucky. His nickname is Lucky, as far as I know. His rugby IQ, that's one of the things that he's known for. And I watched him when he was injured, I think in the World Cup, and he was commentating on SuperSport before he went over. And I just thought, what a clever guy. He knows his stuff. I mean, just rugby IQ doesn't just, what's happening on the field. It's understanding the game as a whole. He seems to excel in that for me.
Yeah, that's why I had to give him one over Jesse there. So I gave him 19 out of 20.
Ooh. 19 out of 20. All right, fantastic. Yeah.
And then on the work rate, obviously he's a Springbok. He knows what's required. He's a 10 out of 10.
All right, that gives us an 88. With the weak point basically being his attack a little bit, and then slightly probably slower than Jesse, I suppose, on defense. That's probably why you marked him down as well.
And also, he's playing 12 at the moment.
You said that.
He was injured. Jesse got a lot of game time at 13. You need time in the saddle. It's not just 10 or 9 or 15 anymore where you need time in the saddle. Those types of positions, you need time playing the position, making the mistakes, getting back to your best by improving and tweaking those things.
Just summarize that quickly before we look at the dark horse, which I can't wait, because again, I don't know who the dark horse is, and I specifically told you not to tell me so that I can be suitably surprised. Jesse's at 93, Henco is at 75, Jurenzo Julius is at 75, and Lukhanyo Am is at 88. Two very clear favorites, and that's quite an impressive score. Now, tell me who the dark horse is.
He's actually not that much of an outsider. It's a current Springbok, which I think might give us a bit of an attacking option, an attacking, what do you call that? Attacking threat in the midfield. None other than Mr. Cheslin Colby.
At centre?
I'd love to see him play 13. He understands the defense. He plays wing, so he understands what he wants from his 13. What he wants him to do to make his defense easier. He's physical enough. His defense is good enough. He's got great hands. He's an attacking threat. He's quick enough. He can defend in and out if the ball goes past. And if you've got Cheslin at 13, but closer to the ball, get ball in hand with people around him, and he's not the last man. He can create so much more and give you an option there. I'd love to see him at 13.
Has he ever played centre before? Any?
I didn't go and delve into any history. I think that could be an option. You know, you might have one of those situations where Russie's going one way and Tony Brown and Jerry's taking the team to another side, and they need to. Jesse's probably is not available, or he's staying with the one side. We don't have a centre on this side, but we've got good wings. Or you get someone like Hooker that's available for wing, and he's he gets to play wing, whatever the case may be. And you need a 13, specialist 13. I think Colby can do that job.
Well, he can play centre. He's thrown the ball into the line out. He's played scrum off. I mean, what else can't he? I suppose you just can't play prop or lock for that matter. But maybe we can throw him there. He's small enough. Okay, André, thanks, mate. That was a very interesting one again. I enjoyed that. I especially enjoyed that dark horse. I mean, you always come up with these left field things. Stravino Jacobs was your dark horse last week at the wings. He didn't cover himself in glory. And I thought, oh, no, Stravino, I just mentioned your name. What are you doing? What did you think of his performance against Bayonne last week?
I think he had a chance. He had a chance to put his name on the score sheet for the selectors, and but not necessarily just for the Springbok selectors, for the Bull selectors to say, listen, let me play for the rest of the season, give this jersey to me. And the opportunities didn't come his way, but the good wings make opportunities. They go and create something off their wing, go and look for work on the other side. And hopefully, I still believe there's something in Stravino. I still believe there's somewhere some coach is going to get a hold of him, and he's going to make him understand how good he is, make him get himself to believe in himself. And then they're probably doing that at the moment at the Bulls. It's just taking time, and he's going to pop out as an international player. But I still believe it's there. It wasn't his best game against Bayonne. I'm glad the Bulls won that one. But I think Colby can play 13.
Getting back to that now. All right, André, thanks, man. Looking forward to that. Appreciate it.
Cheers, MW.
Our ultimate 2025 Springbok team every Sunday with André Pretorius.